My name is Shanae George. I'm a psychotherapist and founder of Culture Minds Therapy. My role is to take therapy outside of the office and to you all at home. I bring to you the mind behind your favourite guests. We speak about mental health, therapy and self-care. Thank you for coming today, Aurie.
Thank you for having me.
How are you feeling today?
I'm good. How about you?
Thank you for asking. I'm good. You're one of the only guests, I think, actually, let me not say the only guest, but thank you for asking, because not many of my guests ask me how I am.
You lot are terrible. You lot should be asking. Whoever they are, they're all terrible. That's what I'm just joking.
But maybe you might start a trend. So now, when I have guests on, they're going to start to ask, how am I feeling?
As they should.
Yeah.
As far as I'm
But it's
concerned.
not, I guess it's not a common question, is it? How are you feeling?
It's not.
It's kind of like a roll of the tongue.
It's a throwaway question that people kind of use to just start a conversation. But because you say, how are you feeling? It's more specific and for them to have to look internally how they are actually feeling, rather than just how you doing. Yeah, I'm fine. But how you're feeling is, aside from the things that you're actually doing, it's more introspective. And I guess that can stop people and make them go, actually, how am I feeling? So yeah.
Okay.
And they should throw that back to you as well.
Okay. Well, hopefully now they might start throwing things. No pressure, but they might start asking me. And speaking of that, do you feel that in the Black community, when people ask you, how are you feeling, do you think we're honest with how we're really feeling?
Depends on the individuals. Maybe 20 years ago, it used to be the general consensus. If you're not within my inner circle and you're asking me, I give you a throwaway answer. But we're in a renaissance now of people being a lot more self-aware of the need to be more expressive or conversational about how they're feeling. So now it's better, but we're still kind of in that early stage of that transition of being comfortable with speaking up about how we feel, particularly with our community, because of what we've been told we should do. When you're out and about, don't tell your business.
Yeah.
When you go different places, just go there, keep your head down, come back, and only talk within your own household, which sometimes might be the struggle that you want to talk about. So we're getting better. We're not all the way, but it is a thing that people do feel a way about, trying to be as honest as they can about how they're feeling. But yeah, it's a journey that we're still on, and we're not all the way there yet, but we're on our way.
Yeah, I like how you put it, and I guess, as you said, it is a journey, and it's all about these interviews. Well, for me, these interviews are how I help people with creating healthy conversations about mental health, about your emotions, about how you're feeling. So hopefully, if someone watches this interview, they can then feel inspired to kind of have these conversations and ask people, how are you feeling? But be genuine with it. And then for the other person to be like, you know what, I've had a bad week, or you know what, I'm really, really good.
I hear that. I think that's good. Hopefully. Yeah.
So you are currently doing the Soho Comedy Run.
Soho Theatre Run.
I got it wrong.
That's fine, that's cool.
Okay, Soho Theatre Run.
So Soho Theatre is quite a well-known, popular place for not just comedians, but you get actors that are in there that put on like shows. You'll get dance group, there'll be drag shows, there'll be so many different forms of live performances from entertainers of all caliber. We're talking those who are newer all the way up until the biggest names that you've seen on TV in this country and in America, all over the world, will come to the UK and do a run at the Soho Theatre. So I'm doing mine. I'm doing a show called Greener, which is a midway show between my last tour and not even a midway show. It's kind of a check-in show. So similar to what we were discussing, my last tour was about dealing with your own mental health and the positions that you're in to manage things that are influencing either its upliftment or its downfall. And I made a promise at the end of the show to try and be more green, as the show was called. And this one is like a year later, I'm holding myself accountable and checking in to see where I'm at and where the people that have been on the journey are at with me as well. So the show's called Greener, and it's got a question mark at the end. Am I better? Am I doing better? Am I in a better place? Have things progressed? Have I grown? Am I able to manage the things that were influencing me to feel one way a lot more now, as opposed to just letting me run with the influences that take me either on a journey which is positive or one which is negative. And this is I'm only doing it for 2 nights as a check-in show, and then after that, that one, I put that to bed, and then I'll just continue having like a sabbatical for the rest of the year, and then next year I get back to heavy lifting and heavy work.
Nice, I like that. And from what you were saying, it sounds like you're taking your audience on a journey and kind of like a storytelling, and they can follow you on that journey and
Pretty
kind of
much.
check in together.
A lot of comedians, our main thing is you make jokes to make people laugh. A lot of us will do storytelling, some of us will do one-liners, some will be like edgelord jokes. The more offensive we can be, the funnier the joke can be, depending on who your audience is. My last show and this show is mainly taking them on a journey so I can at least not only make them laugh, but also show them where I'm at, as opposed to the 3 tours I did before that, which was me just going, hey, I'll make you laugh. This one is now, here's a bit of me and a bit of vulnerability. Let's try and find the funny in that, especially after the past few years that we've had. It'd be silly for me to just ignore the effect that that's had on me and on us as a people. Let's look at the effects that have come from what's happened, and let's try and make those funny whilst also going through this journey that you can see that I'm on, that so many other people are also on in their own way as well.
I love that. It's so creative. I've never been in front of a professional comedian before. As I was saying to you off camera, there's a difference between someone who can tell jokes.
In your field, I would be surprised that you haven't got so many comedians talking to you.
I haven't, you know.
Seriously?
Yeah, I haven't. And it's like,
we're messed up people, a lot of us.
why'd you say that?
There is a level of narcissism that's required for you to go on stage and say, I'm going to be the thing that you are going to pay for and enjoy, and I'm going to make you laugh, and it's going to be within my control that you're going to like this. You have to have an inflated sense of ego to be able to put yourself on that platform and believe that not only are you cool to do this, but you're so good that you'll go back every night that you want to go and do it again and again and again, and people will pay for you to do that.
But it's a career, and you're professional at what you do. So I guess taking it to the spectrum of narcissists is that how did we get that far?
I think when you establish that it's a career, you'll find comedians that are career comedians don't really want to be the funny person off stage all the time. Those who start doing comedy, not everybody, but a lot of us, when we start doing comedy, it's because we think we're funny. We think we're the man or the woman, or we think that we have something that people need to hear from us over us necessarily listening to other people. Yeah, we might enjoy listening to other people, but at the beginning when we can't see it as a career yet, in the first year or two, when we're trying to develop whatever this is, and we don't necessarily know what we are going to be like on stage or what we should be like on stage, you're going with your idea of what you think is best for the crowd to like about you and what you think is best for the crowd to take home with you. It's you and the crowd. It's you at home writing material and then going on stage and going, I believe this is funny, you should. And that level, is you putting your views above theirs, just at the beginning. Then as time develops, you start to learn who you are on stage. You start to learn your audience. You start to develop the science of humor and comedy. And it's not just about, am I funny? If you don't think I'm funny, something's wrong with you. There are days you have to hold yourself accountable and go, today I didn't really hit that mark properly. Oh no, I didn't do that joke accordingly, or I wasn't considerate in terms of how I delivered that. And you start to chop away at the inflated ego of you being funny. And you start to see comedy for what it is. It's an art form that you have to invest in the art form rather than just going and believing that you're already good enough to make people laugh. And that's where you chop away at that element of how you perceive yourself at the beginning, because now it's not about you, it's about navigating them. It's about it's like boxers. If you were a boxer who believes that just because you can fight and beat up anybody, you go into a ring thinking that that's what you can do, that's arrogance. However, there's an art form to boxing. You have to study the person you're fighting. It's not about how strong you think you are, because there's always going to be someone stronger. You might win a few, but there's going to be that guy that's going to thump the Mario coins out of you. And if you don't realize that you have to practice and invest in the art form and in the skill, then when that happens, you're going to get knocked right back down to reality, which you shouldn't have really overinflated in the first place.
Wow. You said it perfectly. You kind of put it in perspective as well, because I was going to say, well, when you do start off, are you not meant to be confident? Are you not meant to have that sense of, you know, I am funny? And not necessarily you should also think I'm funny, but I would like to also make you laugh. And if you don't laugh, then that's okay, but I still know I'm funny.
You have to have that at the beginning. But I think the best comedians, and most of us will say this, the best comedians are the ones who know that the crowd have the power to boo you. So I'm going to do what I can to make me as unbooable as possible by being as talented as possible and as skillful and as invested and put time in my craft. And you can always tell who has. You'll get some that wing it, and you'll get some that they're at the gym every night, and that's open mic nights or clubs, or they're writing material, they're doing shows back to back to try and fine tune their material, or at least keep the muscles stretched. And you have to, in both instances, you have to have the confidence. But after the confidence gets beat up one day, which it does, when the crowd don't like you, that's where you see somebody who's only like using their confidence to try and be funny, or someone that's going, all right, there has to be more to this than just what I think of myself. And that's where you start to lose the ego and go, I need to invest in this. I need to write. I need to put in the effort and time, market myself accordingly. I need to keep the practice up. I need to go to the clubs and train. And I need to drop my ego and figure out how to navigate this art form. So when people are asking to paying to come and see me, I'm not just winging it with confidence. I've actually put in time and effort that warrants the ticket price that they're paying.
Wow.
So you have to have the confidence at the beginning, but it needs to get chopped away at times with anything, I think. Mike Tyson said, everyone's a good fight. Everyone has got a plan until they get thumped in their face.
Yeah, I remember.
And in that moment is when you have to recoup.
Yeah.
And I think that's with anything that requires you to have a level of confidence to first step into that role and then refigure out and retrain and replan again afterwards.
Okay. So as a comedian then, as a professional comedian, do you plan your jokes, or do you kind of go with the flow based on the audience?
A bit of both.
Okay.
So I have material that I write, and there's material that I've practiced and planned out. But also there's some of us that are very good at riffing and improvising.
Yeah.
Not everyone can, and I don't think everyone should. It just depends on who you are. Some people are fantastic writers, but when it comes to having to riff on the spot, just not their thing. But you will never beat them at writing, and their jokes are immaculate. Or you get some people that their writing is okay, but their charisma is what carries it through, and their aptitude of being able to read a crowd and then freestyle in that moment. So they see an audience member, they can go, what's your name? Oh yeah, okay, is that where you work? No, you don't, what's good? And people are very good at riffing in that sense. I can't remember which comedian said this, but there was a comedian that said, the best of comedians will use all the tools they can in their repertoire. So if you are someone who can improvise, use that as well. If you're someone who's great at writing, get to writing. If you're someone who's great at performance, like even if it's those who are musical comedians, if you're great at playing a bit of music as well, and you throw that in there, not all the time, but once you might do that, that gives you another string to your bow that other people go, there is another angle to this person's performance that makes it more dynamic and it makes it more appealing to them rather than just them just telling jokes and then going. So if you have these different things, use them. But it's important that you do use them. So writing, I think most of us write. We have an idea of what we want to talk about, if not all of us. And then you get some who freestyle as well. I do a bit of both, where I'll have material, but I'll go to an audience. And I don't want to just deliver the rigid material that I wrote in my room where someone else wasn't there. I want to be able to read that crowd and go, well, where is this audience at? Because you might write stuff thinking this is funny, then you get in front of an audience full of people in their 70s. who don't get the same references that I might have. So I have to navigate that crowd and then find the funny in there.
Do you know the audience? Do you know the age range of the audience
Not all the
before you get there?
You get an idea.
Okay.
Like if you go to, like, you'll know, you'll go wireless and see the lineup and you'll know who's going to be there because of it. You'll go to Carnival and you'll know who's going to go to Carnival. Do you know what I mean? With shows, generally speaking, you know who's like the general outline of who's going to be in the audience, but you can go to a comedy club and it could just be couples. Or then you go next week and it's a lot of stags and hens. It's navigating that when you see it, but you're not going to know before you go in exactly who's going to be there. But you get a rough outline and a rough idea of an audience. The only times you really know who's really going to be at a show tends to be if it's your tour show. Like you kind of know who your audience is. Yeah. And even if you do develop a newer audience from maybe you've been on TV and then you go on tour again and then you've got a whole new audience, you at least can trace where your audience has come from because you're like, well, they saw me on this and I know who watches that show, so I know who's going to kind of be in the audience a bit more this time. You can trace it, but you don't really know 100% until you step foot on that stage. That's why, for me, it's kind of good to be able to adjust and maneuver if I need to based on what I see when I walk out there.
Wow. It sounds like, I'm not going to say the word, I was going to say exhausting, but I'm going to say it sounds mentally draining. Do you ever feel that you get mentally drained by the work you do?
Yeah, all of us do. Okay. I think all of us do. Put someone on an hour on stage and they have to talk for an hour, and some people are more physical, so they're jumping around. It can get very tiring. Doing a tour where you've got like 30, 40, 50 dates, and you're doing that an hour every night, 3 times, maybe 4 times a week, traveling around the country, hotel to hotel, going home maybe for 3 nights of the week, it's going to be draining. If you've got family at home that you don't get to see, or even if you go home and you've got stuff that you've got to do at home, even if it's just you at home, you go from a large audience, high energy, that infusion of love and appreciation that can sometimes release that serotonin effect of, oh my God, this is amazing and great. Then you leave the room and then you get the come down.
Okay.
Which a lot of us get, which is, I've been up, I've been great, the adrenaline's kicked in and now it's died down and it's quiet. That silence is so loud to us because we've just been in a room in an environment where it's been really, really noisy. And now you've got the come down where you kind of want the silence, but you hear it because you've just contrasted the noise to this.
Wow.
That plays a part in how you might feel mentally, and you have to either acknowledge it and just ride the wave with a full awareness of it. But if it does get too much, you have to take breaks as well, or else you're going to be riding that wave of highs and then lows, highs and then lows. And you know that chemical imbalance is not great to live on continuously. So it really can be a mental strain. Wow. But it's not. But also, I think what helps is if you love your job, you're more willing to take that strain. If you had a job you hated and that strain's playing a part, then there's less of the feeling of positivity attached to what you're doing that makes you want to continue to do it, and that probably strains you even more. And I think with entertainers, they have that when they, not so much a job, but when they perform to a crowd, they feel they don't appreciate them. They perform to a crowd that weren't listening. You perform, like, it's no end of the spectrum. I could perform to a really, one crowd in Brooklyn I did a show in New York, and that's a ghetto crowd. It was a brunch.
Yeah,
and
brunch, wow.
Listen, you know us, right? We'll fling a flower wall somewhere and call it a venue a brunch venue. And they did that. Barely a stage. All the comedians, none of them were paying attention to us, the audience. They're too busy eating and talking at the same time, and we're there having to make them laugh. You leave there, and you're like, why am I even doing this? But you still get the high and the low, your energy's high and low. And then you get another crowd. Like, you'll go to one of the members clubs in London, and the people that are in the audience, not me so much, because I'm quite aggressive on the stage, and I can attack very well. Not negatively, but you attack an audience with energy, hi, hey, pay attention, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Some people who are kind of low energy can go there and be in front of these like sons of oligarchs who've got money, who are just like, oh, I'm here because my daddy owns that wing of this club. And they don't feel like they owe you any attention. Similar to when you work in customer service, when someone's rude to you, you're trying to help them, you're trying to perform for them as a comedian. It feels like you're just giving me rude back when I'm doing this to make you laugh. And that you can have a really, really down day and then still have the come down and question, why am I doing this? So yeah, it does have a mental strain on you.
How do you deal with your emotions being a comedian? Because I get the sense that it's a very emotionally vulnerable role, because a lot of jokes that you may, or that you have told, have come from family or personal situations. How do you manage that emotional vulnerability and your emotions when you're telling these jokes, and even after you've told the jokes?
I don't find myself too vulnerable on stage when I'm telling jokes, because I have the freedom to adapt them a bit. Like, if I talk about a sibling, it might be a joke about like my brother, and I might take that and go, my sister, which for me then feels like it's not telling the complete truth, but elements of it. Or if it is about my sister, my cousin or something, just to take it slightly away, which means I'm in control of what the audience get to hear and see. And I can tweet, I won't get, like, there are private things that I'll speak to my family about, things I can make jokes about first, but even if there are things that I don't feel like I have the control to not tell you. I only will talk about things that I'm in a place that I'm comfortable enough to do so. And which then doesn't make me feel vulnerable, because it's within my volition. I control it. Whereas I think where it gets emotionally taxing isn't when you're on stage, it's normally off stage, because you invest so much into this life, this persona. And sometimes you come off stage and feel like you're not in the place you want to be, or you're not in the place that you feel that you deserve to be. And that's when the more emotionally vulnerable side kicks in, where you then go, again, why am I doing this? But I think when you're on stage, your vulnerability is such an asset that you have a control over. And you also, the level of subterfuge you have when it comes to telling the audience, hey, I live in, I don't know, Ladbroke Grove, where you actually live in Peckham. Like, I can lie to the audience if I want to, but they'll believe that. Yeah. Not to say that I do, but because you know you have that control, it's not so exposing. I think the exposure is when you lose the mask when you're on stage and you're off stage now, and you have to go, well, who am I? And the people that see me for who I am on stage don't really know who I am. Do I feel seen? Do I feel heard? That's where you feel the real emotional drain. Not with everybody. Some people feel fine. I guess it's different. But for me, I think it's off stage where I feel like, okay, that's where I'm worried about my balance. As soon as I'm on stage, I'm fine. I have fun. I come off stage and it's like, I'm around the people that were there and they're like, oh, well done, you were great. And I'm fine again. But it's when I leave the venue and you have to ask yourself, where does the stage person end and I begin? And that's where the vulnerability questions come up to play, if that makes sense.
Yeah, wow. Have you ever struggled with your mental health?
Yeah.
Within your career? What have you struggled with?
Other
than imposter syndrome?
Within my career? Oh God. I think when, I wouldn't say with being on stage, I think it's when you've tried to get to the next level and you feel like you're hitting a ceiling. And then you had things like COVID that completely stopped our work. And then as a man, I questioned, well, wow, I need to make money, I need to earn. Even if I found other ways to earn with doing voiceovers, with doing stuff on social media, just for this period of time. I think with men, a lot of our identity is not just who we are, it's what we do. That we've been told is heavily weighing on our identity. Like, are you successful in the field that you've worked in? And I think that is where it really broke me down, is because there were points where I had no control over my advancement in my career. And at that point, I was like, yo, this is really affecting me. And then you had like secondary things, which would be in your home life, the relationship you was in, or family situations, or like things of that nature. Finances catching up with you when you've stayed on top of it, but then something else out of your control, like pulls you back. That's when I've struggled with my mental health. Not so much with being on the stage, but with the things that come with what you're working for and it feeling like it's not working. That's when it's weighed me down.
Okay. And how have you managed to deal with that?
Therapy. I'm in there every week.
Oh, you go to therapy?
Every week.
Oh, how are you finding it?
It's good. When I was younger, I studied behavioral psychology.
Oh, wow.
So it's a blessing and a curse because, as you'll know, the first thing you think is, well, I got the tools to do this for myself. But when you're in a defensive, I understand the mind. I understand, and I have a great aptitude to be able to assess and analyze, not just myself, but circumstances around me. I've got a handle of this. And then you forget that sometimes it's not just about going to get someone to tell you advice. It's about giving someone information as a bouncing board so they can reflect what you're saying, so you can almost read what it is that you need to read to be able to understand the things that you're going through. So for me, it was a tricky one at the start because I was like, I don't really want to. I was always pro everybody seeking counseling or therapy, always. But I was like, but I'm okay because I've got a handle of myself because I have the tools. And then after a while I went, you know what, I'm just kind of tired of having to have the tools and balancing everything plus my own mental health on my own. So I went and sought out therapy with who is still my current therapist. And one of the best decisions I could ever made, because now every Monday, I have an analogy that I use it in my special green. People hear the word therapy and it's like, wow, what's wrong with you? Nothing. People have to understand that therapy is not just about helping and fixing, it's about managing. When you buy a car, when you buy it from new, you still get it regularly serviced every year. So you have the car maintained to the level of quality that it is when you bought it years down the line. If you don't do that, it will start to degrade. But if you get it regularly checked out, they can maintain it for as long as they possibly can. So you get the value out the car. Physical health. You go to the gym because you want to make sure you invest in your health from now. So when you're older,
you feel good.
You feel a lot better. Yeah. Like your bones aren't as creaky, arthritis isn't kicking in, your joints aren't tight because you've worked on your health from young when it's easier to deal with, because it's a lot harder when it's already starting to mash down. We do it with our physical health, we do it with our belongings. You got to do it with your mind as well. If you have someone that you can check in with at regular intervals, even if things are not bad, there's somebody who's aware of your traumas and your schemas that can at least see where you're at now. And even if you have a good week, at least you can discuss that good week. So you have somebody that allows you to keep checking in on yourself, because your older self, when you are more stubborn and cantankerous by nature, can at least say, well, when I was younger, I was invested in my mental health from before. And now that I'm older, it's been a hell of a lot more easier for me to handle things that are new to me and things that may come in my life that might be tricky because I've invested in my mind from young.
Yeah, and you can see the benefits now.
Big time.
And you can use the tools to equip yourself as you continue to grow.
Exactly, big time.
I love that. I love that. Oh, well, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being so honest and authentic as well, because we don't often hear a lot of Black men talk about going to therapy and the benefits of that. And you've been very open in sharing that. So thank you.
You have to be, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, thanks for coming.
No problem, thank you.